Hi there, welcome to Games Over Coffee Consulting. My name is Devon. People give me their games and I give feedback on their game design. We're going to go ahead and get right into this. This is 17 Waves by Pear Tree. So Pear Tree submitted this because this is what he said in the submission form. The intended experience was players should work together by verbally communicating and strategizing as a team to work through each level on numerous plays. From watching the playtesters so far, I think this is okay, but not great. I think the cooperation mechanics could be improved. A lot of time players will have general zones that they'll play and tasks that they're working on, but won't need assistance from other players. I do think later levels start to address this better with more interesting and challenging level designs, but there's something still missing at the basic gameplay mechanics. Some feedback I've received is that the game can feel too hectic and doesn't provide a moment for players to strategize or plan, but the idea of being on the go is still core to the gameplay, as the game is inspired by a combination of Pixel Junk Monsters 2 and Overcooked. My biggest question is if you have fun. That's not a question. I know it's not the genre of games that you play, so I'm curious if it's engaging and enjoyable enough for a wider audience. So this game's really interesting because you build towers as like a little avatar, and the little avatar runs around the map, and then you have to like physically go support your towers by bringing things and mining things and getting coins and loading them into your bank and stuff like that. It's really interesting because it gives the player a lot to do. You're just constantly moving, and it's interesting. It's a cool type of gameplay. I haven't really played a game that's like this before. I'd say pretty much everything in this game works really well. There's nothing that stands out to me that there's anything really bad in this game. I played the tutorial in this game a few times, and then I decided to try to play online. So I reached out to my Discord and I got 2 people to play with me. So thank you so much, Unwise Lock and Tin Tuna, for playing with me. And you can see that gameplay right here. That's us 3 playing. So I did have fun in this game. Like this person said, I don't play tower defense games a whole lot, but the reason why I don't play tower defense games has to do with resource management. But when you're controlling an avatar, you're focused on one task at a time, and you kind of have to pick one task versus the other. So it feels a little bit more like an action game. So while I was playing the game, I was trying to figure out what kind of feelings I was having during this gameplay. And while I was engaged with the gameplay, I was having fun in the moment. There were still some times that I felt a bit of a lull in this game. And it wasn't a lull in the same way that tower defense games have, because tower defense games, one of the guys mentioned this online. He said that it feels like in tower defense games, there's always this moment of just kind of like waiting. You strategize, you put your towers everywhere, and then you just wait for the enemies to come, see if your strategy pays off. And it's kind of like a turn-based thing. Whereas in this game, you don't have that lull. You're just constantly moving. There's always things going on. There's always something for you to do. But while doing those things, I wouldn't say it gets monotonous per se, but I would say that it just kind of has this feeling of I'm doing things and I don't feel directly connected with the outcome of the challenge at hand. When you're playing a regular tower defense game, the strategy that you have, the gameplay loop that's involved, has to do with placing the towers, seeing if they're good, and then upgrading them or demolishing them. But a lot of that satisfaction that a player has to do with placing the towers, seeing if their strategy works afterwards, and then if it does, to continue, supporting those towers. So it can feel really good because you set up these specific towers at these specific points. When those things happen and it works, it feels really good to the player, and that's the kind of thing that motivates them forward. That's the kind of skill that they build up. While I was playing this game, while I was playing 17 Waves, most of the gameplay has to do with supporting the towers as opposed to building and then seeing what happens next. When I'm doing this in single player, I think it really works because it feels like what you're doing is you're continuously validating the decisions that you've made. But that support is very secondary to the action that you did in the first place, which was just to build the towers. So that's kind of what I believe is the core mechanic in a lot of tower defense games. It's the thing of building the towers and seeing if they work. But it's a lot of that. It's just building towers, seeing if they work, building towers, seeing if they work. But as far as I know, there's no fast forward option. And that's in a lot of tower defense games, that fast forward option. And since there's no way to fast forward just to see if your strategy worked, you're not really getting to the learning part of your game loop super fast. You're just putting in towers, seeing if they work, and if they do, great, but it's a long loop that happens, right? It's very long. So I felt like that was the kind of lull that I was feeling while playing this game, and I don't feel like I'm building a skill that much while I'm playing this game because, like I said, a lot of it has to do with supporting the decisions that you already made. Okay, hi there. This is Devon from the future here. I'm editing this video right now. I was talking about the fast forward function. I am not at all implying that the fast forward function should be a thing in 17 Waves. That should not happen, because if that were to happen, it'd be really difficult to play the game. But the idea that I'm trying to get across is that in those other traditional games, the fast forward option exists for a reason, and that's to shorten and tighten the game loop. People can get to that learning phase very easily, very fast. In this game, in 17 Waves, you can't really get to that learning phase that quickly. I'm not saying that you should add a fast forward function. I'm just showing the differences between these two. That's all. The other thing I wanted to talk about was that this game kind of approaches this whole gameplay differently because the enemies are never known exactly what path they're going to take. It brings about a different kind of feeling when you're playing the game because you have to react to that as opposed to plan for it ahead of time. So it's a different type of gameplay. I just wanted to acknowledge that. Back to the video. As for the cooperation, I wanted to look a little bit at Overcooked. So if you haven't played the game in Overcooked, everyone plays a cook on some sort of line, and the idea is to work together to get dishes out of the kitchen. It seems like from the gameplay, and I don't know for sure because I haven't personally played the game, but it seems like every player can do the same thing, but there's certain areas that they're kind of forced into at sometimes. So if you're in the area where chopping stuff is beneficial, then you're going to get a vegetable and chop it up. And if you're in the area that plating is beneficial, then you're going to start plating. But people can switch tasks if they want to, or if someone's going too slow, then one of them can pick up the slack. Now, the reason why I think this works so well in Overcooked, where everyone has the same attributes, but can just choose to do different things, it's because everyone's trying to do the same thing, right? Which is to get this dish out. And it's way more efficient if everyone works together. You kind of get better at the game and your skill grows if you cooperate more with other people. So if you have one person that's doing all the things, which is taking out the vegetable, going over there, chopping it, putting it in the soup and putting it in the dish, and then going to deliver that dish and then coming back with the dirty dishes and washing it, having one person do all of those things is very inefficient. But if you do, a bunch of people that have a bunch of different responsibilities, all cooperate together, then you're building that efficiency and you can get way more things done all at once. That's because the game loop in there, the thing that all of us are trying to do at the very end is to complete all of these dishes because they're timed. The thing in 17 Waves, however, all of us are trying to basically survive. So it doesn't really matter if one person doesn't pick up the slack because in the end, it's the towers that do the work. Cooperation in here is never forced, and that's fine. And that's what's kind of cool about 17 Waves also, is that it doesn't ever force players to do one specific thing because there's no classes involved. They have instead what's called personal upgrades, where you can use a little bit of your money to give your own character an upgrade, whether that's a speed boost, or you can get landmines, right, to place them to attack enemies directly. Everyone's basically the same unless you personally upgrade. For example, there was a time where Tin Tuna was running around the island with a speed boost mechanic, getting all of the upgrades and just tossing it to us. Me and Unwise Lock would take the upgrades and go to upgrade the towers that were nearby. And because we did it that way, it was a lot more efficient than one person doing the upgrading by themselves. However, all the strategies that we're forming seem to be just based on the gameplay loop, which is obvious, that's what you do, but these gameplay loops are based on supporting the towers and not exactly about strategizing where the towers should be placed. If people want to cooperate more and get more engagement out of the game, they're going to have to put more work into it. If you don't want that to happen, if you'd rather give people kind of a way to start out to show them, hey, this is the way that you should be interacting with each other, this is the way you should be strategizing, then you want to create those kinds of ways. One of the most obvious things you could do is create classes, which I'm not sure is such a good idea in this respect because you already have personal upgrades, which I think works really well in that kind of class situation. But something that they need is some sort of asymmetrical gameplay, something that one player can do that others can't, so that they need each other more. And those things don't have to be attribute related. For example, in Overcooked, there's a level in there where your walls are sliding and people have to switch tasks based on the location that they're in. And I think that would be interesting here in 17 Waves, that there was little areas that certain players could go to, but others couldn't. And building that cooperation in that way where the players need each other a lot more, I think would increase the engagement. And like I said before, I do like this type of engagement that's here already. I like the idea that all of us are working together, supporting the decisions that we made earlier. You did mention you had some feedback before from players saying that they wish there was some time to strategize, and I do think that's a good idea. I think it was Unwise Locker, Tintuna, one of the guys, said something about how cool would it be if we had some sort of blueprint or something before we started, playing this game, to where we can mark out areas. Oh yeah, that looks like a good area to build a certain type of tower. The only times that we did that specifically by ourselves was at the last level that we played. We all walked around the island and we came to one little area and we said,
yeah, well, let's start at this T-junction, right? Because this is the point that they have to come through.
That's a good idea. Yes, let's do a slime.
And it was really cool, but it would be nice to have something like that just before you play the game. That being said, that's what I have to say about the gameplay itself. As for the fun factor, and did it pull me in? I think it definitely did, but it definitely relied on me playing with others. That engagement and that kind of cooperative play really brought me into the gameplay. I still think more asymmetrical gameplay would get me more invested, but yeah, that's what I think. I have one more video of these generic game design advice, and then I'm moving on to storytelling game design. If you're a developer, if you're not this developer, and you have a game that has storytelling in it, and that's its primary function, it's just function as a story, if it's more artsy than other games, and you're having a hard time with it, you can submit it to me. I would love to take a look at it. So you can do that at gamesover.coffee. Just click the little submit button and you can do that. Or there's a link in the description also. If you want to be a playtester for future games, or you just want to talk to these developers, you can come to our Discord. There's a link in the description. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Love you guys. I will talk to you later. Peace.
Why don't we start with number 3?
Right, yeah.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
Number 1 is definitely going to be too easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, way too easy.